When Rio invited me to his hometown, I said yes because I needed somewhere to disappear. I'm serious, he told me after our last exam. No trains. Barely any buses. It's the perfect place to be nobody for a week. Tokyo had stopped feeling like a city to me and started to feel like a swarm. Notifications. People. Expectations. The idea of a quiet village with no cell service sounded like a reset button. I should have wondered why Rio's eyes looked so tired when he talked about it. Don't you miss it? I asked. He shrugged. My parents want me to come back for the summer festival, he said. They say they need all the children home. They sound desperate. Come with me. If it's boring, we'll just drink in the fields and complain about life. It sounded harmless. All horror stories do, at the beginning. The bus driver frowned when we showed him the address. You're sure? He asked, tapping the paper. There's nothing up there but that village. That's where we're going, Rio said. Mikage Village. The driver's fingers tightened around the steering wheel. We don't usually have outsiders for that place, he muttered. Is there a problem? I asked. He forced a smile. Just roads, he said. Narrow. Old. Be careful where you step. He dropped us off at a cracked, faded sign that might once have said Mikage, but the paint had peeled until only ghost letters remained. The road beyond wound into the forest like something the mountain had tried to swallow. Overhead, the sky was a flat, heavy gray. No convenience stores. No vending machines. No noise except cicadas screaming in the trees. Cheerful, I said. Rio laughed once. You'll get used to it, he said. Maybe. We walked. As we climbed, my phone buzzed once with a last dying bar of reception, then went silent. The asphalt turned to packed dirt. Old stone markers appeared beside the road, carved with names worn down by rain, family names, ancestor names, too faint to read. Finally, the trees opened. Mikage Village sat in a shallow bowl between hills, a tight cluster of wooden houses around a single crooked shrine. It looked less like a living town and more like the memory of one. No power lines crossed the sky. No cars lined the road. Just low roofs, tiled and patched, and narrow lanes between them. Rio-chan? The voice came from the nearest house. An old woman stepped out, wiping her hands on an apron that might once have been white. Her eyes were clouded but sharp. Ah, you brought a friend, she said. Good. We need more voices. Her gaze slid over me, pausing a heartbeat too long. It felt like being measured. This is Haru, Rio said. From university. I told you, remember? He's just here to relax. The old woman smiled, but it didn't show in her cheeks. Relax, she repeated. Yes. That's good. You can do that, until tonight. Tonight? I asked. Her smile thinned. The festival, she said. You came at the right time. Or the only time. Depends how you look at it. She shuffled back inside without saying goodbye. Rio sighed. That's my grandmother, he said. She's always like that. Come on. My parents' place is up the hill. As we walked through the village, I realized what was bothering me. It wasn't just the silence. It was the sameness. Every house we passed had its front door slightly open. Every open door had someone sitting just inside the threshold, where house met world. Old men. Middle-aged women. Children. All of them watched us pass with the same expression, not hostility, not welcome. Something like hope. Or hunger. I nodded politely. Most didn't nod back. Their eyes followed us until we turned a corner. Only then did they blink. Rio's parents welcomed me with exaggerated warmth, like they were grateful I'd agreed to take on a burden. This must be hard for you, his mother said as she poured tea. City boy, small village. It's peaceful, I said, because that seemed like the right word. His father laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Peaceful, he repeated. Yes. That's one way to call it. They asked about school. We made harmless small talk. Nothing about the way the floorboards creaked like someone pacing just beneath our feet. Nothing about how the house felt full even though only 4 people were in it. After dinner, Rio and I sat on the narrow balcony, legs dangling. The village below was lit by a few weak lanterns, their glow tarnished by mist. Hey, I said. What is this festival, actually? Your grandma said something weird about voices. Rio leaned back against the sliding door. You know how some places refuse to die, he said. I frowned. Like ghost towns? Not exactly, he said. More like sick people who won't let go. My grandfather used to say the village is one of them. A long time ago, Mikage was supposed to be abandoned. Landslides. Bad harvests. Young people leaving. The government said it wasn't worth keeping on the map. Too remote to support. So why is it still here? I asked. He stared out at the crooked shrine. They made a deal, he said. Or they convinced themselves they did. There's a ritual. Once a year. They call it the binding. They gather at the shrine and offer something. So the village isn't forgotten. What do they offer? I asked. My grandfather used to say, voices, Rio answered. Names. Memory. A piece of themselves. Honestly, I thought it was just old man talk. I left for Tokyo and tried to never think about it again. He rubbed his face. Then my parents called, he said. They said attendance had been thin in recent years. Too many people leaving. Too many graves, not enough new babies. They said if all the children who left didn't come home for the ritual, the village would disappear. He gave a humorless smile. Or something worse, he added. I wasn't going to come. But my grandmother sent a letter. Handwritten. She never does that. Twice she wrote, if you don't come this time, you'll never come back at all. That freaked me out enough to say yes. He glanced at me. I invited you because I didn't want to be alone here, he said. And because. He trailed off. Because what? I asked. He looked down at his hands. Because she said, he murmured, bring someone from the city who still believes in stories. My tea sat heavy in my stomach. So I'm a, what, exactly? I said. Guest? Witness? I hope just a friend on a countryside trip, he said. Let's keep it that way, okay? He didn't meet my eyes when he said it. The binding began at midnight. No one knocked on our door. No one called our names. We simply woke up. I don't remember going to sleep. At some point, the room went dark. At some point after that, a low chanting sank into my dreams and pulled me up like a hook. I sat up on my futon. Rio was already standing. His eyes were open, but his face was slack, like someone else had worn it before him and left it on wrong. Hey, I whispered. Rio. He blinked once. Haru, he said. We have to go. His voice wasn't quite his. It sounded like 2 people speaking at once, slightly out of sync. My skin crawled. Still, my legs moved. We stepped out into the hall. The house was full of people. All of them silent. His parents. His grandmother. Neighbors I hadn't met yet. They filled the space from wall to wall, standing shoulder to shoulder with impossible stillness. No one spoke. No one brushed against anyone else. Yet the air felt packed, so dense it was hard to breathe. One by one, they turned toward the door. We followed. Outside, the village was awake. Lanterns burned in every window. Figures stepped out of every house, moving in the same slow, dreamlike rhythm. They walked in lines, feet shuffling, heads bowed. All toward the same place. The shrine. I tried to tell myself it was just a festival's start. Traditional. Weird. Old-fashioned. Then I noticed their eyes. They weren't looking at the shrine. They weren't looking at the ground. They were unfocused, staring just above all that, like they were watching something none of us could see. Their mouths moved soundlessly. Their lips formed words that never reached the air. "Rio," I whispered again. "Something's wrong." He looked back at me. For a heartbeat, his gaze cleared. "You shouldn't have come," he whispered. "I'm sorry." Then the chanting swelled, and his face went slack again. We were swept along with the others, our bodies carried by a tide of villagers who all moved like they shared a single mind. Mike's shrine was small. A torii gate leaned at the entrance, half swallowed by ivy. Stone lanterns stood in a crooked line, their insides glowing dimly as if embarrassed. At the top of a short flight of steps, the honden waited, the main building, its wood dark with age. We gathered in the clearing below. All of us. I realized, suddenly, that I hadn't seen an empty house. Everyone was here. Old, young, sick, strong. No one had stayed in bed. No one had been left behind. They stood in a circle facing the shrine. No music. No drums. Just breathing. Then someone began. A single voice, thin and cracked, rose from near the front. Asterisk asterisk we remember asterisk asterisk. The words were Japanese, but the cadence was wrong, like a half-forgotten lullaby. Others answered in a low murmur. We remember. The phrase repeated, growing more insistent. We remember what they forgot, the first voice continued. We remember the roads they closed. The name they erased. We remember the children they took for cities and the houses they left to rot. The crowd answered each line with a single phrase. We remain. It should have been stirring. Defiant. Instead, it felt desperate. Like listening to a body forcing itself to breathe long after it should have stopped. An old man in faded priest's robe shuffled up the steps to the honden. He carried no staff. No bells. Just a bundle of paper strips and a long, narrow knife. His eyes were glassy and pale, like boiled fish. He raised the knife. "Tonight we bind again," he said. "Tonight we offer voice and face. Tonight we feed the village so it does not die." He turned toward us, and for a moment it felt like every villager's face turned with his, all at once, like flowers tracking the sun. Their eyes, dozens, hundreds, fixed on my row. On me. Not on Rio. Me. The outsider. The one who still believes in stories. My throat tightened. The priest smiled. His teeth were too many. "Welcome, child of nowhere," he said, voice echoing too loudly in the night. "Will you help us remember?" The villagers' lips parted. Smiles slid onto their faces like masks being pulled on from behind. Too wide. Too sudden. "Help us," they whispered. "Stay. Stay. Stay." Their voices overlapped until it became one sound, like wind forcing its way through dry leaves. My legs wanted to run. My body wouldn't move. I was caught between those hungry faces and the shrine's open mouth. Rio's hand found mine. His fingers trembled. "Run when I say," he breathed. "If you can still tell the difference between them and us." "What?" I began. The priest raised the knife high. "Bring them forward," he intoned. Two men stepped out from the crowd. Or things that had once been men. Their skin hung loosely on their frames, as if gravity worked differently on them. Their eyes were cloudy, but their movements were too smooth now, like puppets finally remembering their strings. They walked toward us. Rio's grip tightened. "Now," he hissed. We bolted sideways, out of the line. For a moment, no one reacted. Then the chanting broke. Voices shattered into cries. Some human. Some not. "Outsider," someone hissed. "Running. Running," another repeated, like a recording. Heads snapped in our direction. Bodies that had seemed barely able to shuffle suddenly moved with unnatural speed, feet scraping dirt, joints bending in wrong angles as they lurched after us. The village had noticed its prey trying to slip away. We ran down a side path between houses. The air turned thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, rock-covered in incense. Behind us, feet pounded. Not in rhythm. In a chaotic storm. Some slammed full force into the ground. Some barely whispered. We darted around a corner. A woman stood there, blocking the path. She was middle-aged, wearing a faded floral dress. Her head tilted to one side. Her eyes were open too wide. "Stay," she said calmly. "It's safer. Outside, you vanish. Inside, we remember you forever." Her neck creaked as she spoke, like something dried and old. Rio yanked me back. "This way," he gasped, pulling me behind a house. We squeezed between walls, breath tearing at our chests. From every direction came the mutter of voices. "Stay. Don't go. We need you. We need you to stay so we can stay." Around the next bend, a child stood in the lane. I recognized him vaguely from the afternoon. A skinny boy with a shaved head, holding a toy car. Now his eyes were milky. His skin had a grayish tinge. Mud ringed his ankles like bracelets. "Big brother," he said, stepping toward me. His voice skipped in strange little jerks, like a file with missing frames. "You just got here. It's not fair if you leave first." His fingers twitched toward my wrist. They were too long. Wrong. I stumbled back. Rio grabbed a broken broom leaning against the wall and swung it. He didn't hit the boy. He smashed the old paper lantern above him. The sudden explosion of light and ash made the child flinch, eyes squeezing shut. Under his skin, I saw something writhe. For a moment, his face twisted, expression flickering between blank devotion and raw panic. When he opened his eyes again, they were just eyes. Human. Wet. Terrified. "Where?" he whispered. "What?" Then they clouded over again. His head jerked. Slowly, as if dragged, his lips stretched into a smile that showed too many gums. "Stay," he repeated. We ran. We ducked behind a shed, pressing ourselves into the shadow. The village moved around us like an organism. Villagers shuffled in jerky circles, heads snapping toward any sound. Old men crawled on all fours, fingers digging into the dirt. Women stood in doorways, arms hanging limp, mouths working silently as if chewing on words they'd forgotten. Their movements were wrong. Alive and not alive. Shibito. The word rose in my mind, unbidden. I'd played the games. Seen the movies. But this was different. There was no bloodlust here. No mindless hunger. Just one instinct, drag everything back into the circle. Into the village. Into the ritual. "So this is what your grandfather meant," I whispered. The village refused to die, so it started, keeping pieces of people. Rio's breath shuddered. "Not just people," he said. "Anyone who comes. Postmen. Surveyors. Hikers. They disappear, and then at next year's binding there's just more of us. More faces. Some I don't recognize, but no one else seems to notice." He looked at me. "I thought I was imagining it," he said. "Last time I came back, some of them moved like NPCs with bugs. Then one of my old classmates grabbed my arm and begged me to help him. For 2 seconds, he was himself. Then his eyes went empty again. They said he'd been sick. I ran back to Tokyo and tried to forget it." "And now?" I asked. He didn't answer. His hands were shaking again. "We need to get to the road," he said. "Once we're out of the village proper, it's weaker. The binding doesn't stretch that far. At least, that's the rule. I think." We peered around the shed. The lane ahead was clear. We moved. One step. 2. 3. A hand shot out from a low window and grabbed my ankle. I crashed to the ground, air blasting out of my lungs. Pain flashed. When I twisted around, a face loomed from the darkness of the house. An old man. His eyes were wide, pupils tiny. His mouth hung open. From his throat came a sound like wind trying to form words. "Help," I thought he was saying. Then his jaw snapped shut with a crack. His head jerked. The emptiness fell over his face like a veil. "Stay," he croaked. Fingers dug into my skin. Cold. Too cold. Rio kicked the arm. Bone popped. The grip loosened. We stumbled away. The old man's body slumped forward out of the window, hanging there like a puppet with its strings cut, until something in his muscles woke up again and slowly pulled him back inside. The road out of Mikage wasn't guarded by a gate. There was no wall. Just a psychological border where houses thinned and trees thickened. The further we got from the center, the more ragged the chanting became. Voices called, but less clearly. "Stay. Don't. Get out." A figure staggered into the road ahead. Rio skidded to a halt. It was his grandmother. Half of her kimono hung loose, exposing a collarbone like a carved root. Her head tilted. Her eyes were blank and milky. But her mouth was smiling. Too wide. "I told you," she said, voice lilting. "If you didn't come this time, you'd never come back at all." Her hand twitched up, pointing at my chest. "You brought voice," she crooned. "Fresh story. New name. You're a good boy, Rio-chan. Now both of you can stay forever." Rio swallowed. "Oba-chan," he said softly. "You don't sound like yourself." She giggled. The sound was wrong in her old throat. "Self?" she asked. "What is that?" "We are the village now. We are the binding. We are the memory. We can't let you go. If too many voices leave, we forget how to speak." She took a step toward us. Her foot dragged. Her ankle bent sideways with a wet crunch. She didn't react. She kept walking. "Rio," I whispered. "We can't hit her." He stared at his grandmother's approaching face. For a moment, something flickered behind his eyes. Guilt. Fear. Then his jaw clenched. "That's not her anymore," he said hoarsely. "Not all the time. Maybe not at all." He grabbed my arm. "On 3, he said. "Left side. Don't stop." We ran past her. Her fingers brushed my sleeve, leaving a smear of something black and cold. She turned after us, but slowly now, as if weighed down. "Don't go," she called, and for a second her voice sounded human again. "If you leave, what are we?" I looked back once. Her eyes were clear. Wet. Scared. Then they clouded. The smile snapped back into place. "Stay," she sighed. We ran. The last house fell behind. Trees pressed in. The road narrowed. The chanting faded like a radio losing signal. But something heavier lingered. The sensation of being watched by 1,000 eyes all at once. "We're almost there," Rio panted. "Once we hit the old sign, it should be." The world tilted. My foot slipped. Not on mud. On stone. The cracked sign lay ahead, half buried. Mikage, its ghost letters spelled. But the road beyond it looked wrong. Not like the one we'd climbed that morning. The angle. The trees. The curve. All off by a few degrees, like a badly remembered dream. Rio stopped. "What?" he whispered. Behind us, in the dark between trunks, pale shapes moved. Villagers, lined up at the edge of the invisible border, swaying. They didn't step past it. Couldn't. Something held them. But their mouths moved. "We remain," they whispered. "We remain." We remain. The air in front of us shimmered. Words appeared on the cracked surface of the road, written not in paint but in something lighter, like dust arranged by careful, dead fingers. They spelled out a sentence, in Japanese first, then underneath, clumsy English. Once bound, always return. If you leave in parts. Rio laughed then. A broken sound. I should have known, he said. Of course. If the village can't keep bodies, it'll keep pieces. A leg here. A name there. A voice in the chanting. That's how it stays full. He turned to me. His expression was strangely calm. You can still leave, Haru, he said. You're not bound yet. You came once. You can go once. That's fair. What about you? I asked, throat tight. His eyes flicked back toward the villagers. Some faces I didn't recognize. Some I did. Classmates. Neighbors. His grandmother. All of them watching. Waiting. I was born here, he said. I've been through the binding before. Half of me is already in that circle. He tapped his chest. You hear it, right? He asked. In the chanting? How it almost says my name. I listened. In the distant whisper, a sound surfaced. Rio. Rio. Half word. Half sigh. My skin crawled. I won't leave you, I said. He smiled sadly. That's exactly why you have to, he said. If we both stay, the story never leaves. It just loops. Someone has to get out and tell it while their voice is still their own. He put a hand on my shoulder. The road is wrong now, he said. It'll mess with your head. It'll make you want to turn back. But if you keep walking and don't answer when anyone calls your name, you'll reach somewhere. Maybe not the same bus stop. Maybe not the same year. But somewhere that isn't this. He stepped backward, toward the village. His shoulders sagged. His face looked older. More tired. I'll try to slow them, he said. Make them think they've already got enough. Old blood. Old voices. Rio, I began. He shook his head. Tell them, he said. Tell anyone who listens, some villages don't want tourists. They want witnesses. They want pieces. They want to live in your stories when their own bodies finally fall apart. He smiled one last time. Tell them Mikage refuses to die, he murmured. And that if they ever see a name on a map that they don't recognize, in a place that doesn't exist online anymore, they should not go looking for it. The air around him thickened. The villagers' whisper rose. Remain, they sighed. Remain. Remain. Rio turned away. Walked back toward them. As he stepped over the invisible line, his movements slowed. His head jerked. His back bent. His arms hung at his sides. By the time he reached his grandmother, his eyes were clouded. But as she reached out to touch his face, for a moment, he looked over his shoulder. Right at me. His lips moved. Soundless. 2 syllables. Go. Please. I went. I don't know how long I walked. The road folded and unfolded. The trees leaned in, then pulled away. At one point, I heard my mother's voice behind me, calling my name exactly the way she did when I was late as a child. Haru, she called. Where are you? Come back. You forgot something. I didn't turn. At another point, I heard Rio. Hey, he said, breathless and laughing. It was just a joke. Come see something cool. The village isn't that bad. His voice was perfect. Believable. Almost enough to make me stop. I didn't. I kept my eyes on my feet. On the cracks in the road. On the small, mundane details that felt more real than any voice. Eventually, the trees thinned. The old sign appeared again, this time facing the other way. Behind it, the bus stop. The bench. The peeling timetable. The sunlight felt wrong, too bright after all that gray. My phone buzzed weakly. A trickle of reception. 2 missed calls from numbers I didn't know. One from my mother. A flood of messages. I didn't read them. The bus came an hour later. The same driver. He looked at me in the mirror as I sat down. "You went up there," he said softly. I nodded. "They still remember," I said. His hands tightened on the wheel. "Do you?" he asked. I thought of Rio's face in the half-dark. Of villagers moving like badly coded NPCs. Of voices that weren't quite their own. "I wish I didn't," I said. He drove in silence for a while. Then, as we rounded a bend, he spoke again. "Maps change," he said. "Roads close. Names fade out of official records, like someone erased them with an old rubber. But some places, they don't like being erased. They hold on however they can." He glanced at me. "Be careful who you tell," he added. "Some stories are like nails. If too many people hammer on the same spot, the board splits, and whatever is behind it comes through." I looked out the window. In the distance, mountains rolled by. At the base of one, for a second, I thought I saw the outline of a village. Smoke from thin chimneys. A crooked shrine. Small bodies moving in slow circles. Then the bus turned, and it was gone. I'm back in the city now. Sometimes, when I pass an old wooden house squeezed between apartments, I swear I see a face at the threshold, watching. Not hostile. Not welcoming. Just waiting for me to slow down. To listen. To remember. I dream about Mikage. About the binding. About Rio's eyes clearing for a second inside that sea of blank faces. Sometimes I wake up with dirt under my nails. Sometimes I hear chanting in the pipes. "We remain," it whispers. "We remain. We remain." I didn't put their name in the tags. I didn't show their shrine in the thumbnail. I changed small details when I told you, the number of steps to the shrine, the angle of the road, the spelling of the village's name. I'm trying to make it harder for you to find. I don't know if that helps. Places like that don't rely on GPS. They rely on invitation. On curiosity. On people like me, who believe in stories just enough to go chasing ghosts up forgotten roads. If you ever get a message from a friend that says, "Come to my countryside village, it's peaceful and it doesn't show up on the map anymore," remember this. Some villages die quietly. Some fight. And some learn to keep living by turning their residents into something that isn't quite dead and isn't quite alive. Something that needs new names to whisper during rituals so it remembers it still exists. If you go, they'll be glad. They'll be so grateful you came. They'll welcome you with tea and smiles. They'll teach you the words to their binding. They'll make sure that even if you leave, a part of you stays behind. A voice in the chanting. A face in the crowd. Another piece of proof that the village refused to die. And when you try to sleep afterward, far away in your safe city, you might hear them again. A whole village of shibito, old bodies held up by old promises. Murmuring in the dark pipes and wires of your own apartment. We remain. You came. Now you remain too.